Well guys, welcome to another C10 video. We're gonna now be starting on the, bodywork phase of the build. Starting off, we're gonna start with, because I'm gonna be running a vintage air AC system in this truck. And so here I bought prematurely just the block off plate. It will bolt on just like that. And that will make it so it gets rid of the original AC and heater core holes. Obviously I need to patch this one as well, but this will take care of this spot, cleans it up, and then this is where your heater core hoses are going to run through the firewall. And this is designed to be able to just bolt onto this and you will have it look pretty much like that, but I want this to be more clean than that, so I'm actually going to be welding it in. So tracing, cutting, and then welding it into this spot just so it looks cleaner and it looks factory. So, but one thing that I've noticed is if you hold this up, it's kind of awkward in areas like that. And so I'm actually going to be modifying this plate to fit into here better. Probably going to be cutting these off, cutting off here, trimming around the edges to make it so it fits inside this area better, without looking kind of funky. So I guess to start off, we're going to be modifying the plate, and then we can trace it onto here and cut. All right, so we have our cut mark on there. As you can see, I cut not quite a bit, but I took some off of all of the edges just to make sure that I was getting down past this rounded edge, because it's a lot harder to recreate a curved surface than it is just a flat surface. So I think I have everywhere this might be a hair close, but not too bad. Not too worried about that. Yeah, now the fun part of cutting it out. I can't decide if I want to use the grinder here or if I want to go for the plasma cutter. I just don't know if... I know with the grinder I could get it pretty close. Problem with the plasma cutter is it's really easy to make a mistake, which obviously you can fix it, but I don't know, we'll see. You'll see what I do. Well, I guess you can say we are at the point of no return now. Surprisingly, this actually came out to fit pretty good. Like when you do it, you don't want it to be like a perfect match like that. You want there to be a little bit of a gap. That way when you do weld in there, you're throwing material in, and then when you grind it back down to smooth, you're not taking that material off. You're not taking that material completely off because it's actually into the crack or the groove. So always go a hair over of what you're wanting to patch. And I think it's pretty close to being perfect right now. So I'm gonna use, which I've never used these before. I'm gonna try and use these. These go in, these go on the back side, and then you tighten them down and it kind of holds it in there. So we'll see if I can get these in Don't really know what I'm doing, but we'll see. So I moved the cab to the front of the shop here because that's where the welder is, and kind of have it, I think, in the place where I believe it's going to work. So what you're usually going to be working with is this panel is somewhat flat. It might have got a little warped from cutting it, but of course it's not going to be completely the same as the firewall. So as you can see there, we have a gap. And then over here, it's a little high. This corner looks pretty good. Here needs to come out a little bit. Here it's pretty flush, maybe come out a little bit here, and then obviously it starts working its way out. So like I said, I really have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to this. In my mind, I would think you would work from the middle, pick a spot where it's already flush on both sides, so here and maybe down here, and that's where my I guess walking points will be. Tack there, and then come out to where it's flush an inch or two, and then you're just gonna have to keep working it until you make it to the end, because if you just come and tack right here, all of a sudden you have a super big gap and it needs to come out there. So you need to kind of work with the contour of the metal that you're working on. At least that makes sense in my head. Could be totally wrong, but that's what I'm gonna do, and we'll see how it turns out. Well, we got her tacked into place. As you can see, every inch or so I have a tack. One thing you need to be really careful about doing sheet metal is it is really susceptible to warpage. So when you're doing these tacks, move around a lot. Don't just go one after another. Start here and then come do this one, then come over here, then over here, and then slowly start filling in the gaps. So wherever there's a bigger gap, lay a tack in there, then go to the next bigger gap, lay a tack, and then just work your way all the way until it's completely tack welded. That way you are dispersing the heat. You aren't just heating up one area a ton and causing the metal to warp. This feels pretty good. So yeah, just continue that process. And at this point, once you have this, every one of these should be relatively smooth. So, and if they're not, then you can either get a screwdriver and stick it in and kind of bend it out a little bit, or if you need to, get a hammer and tap it in just to make it perfect. So you just have to slowly go along, don't rush it, take your time, and then the end result should come out pretty good. So we have everything tack welded. As you can see, it takes a long time because every single one of these are just a small tack. So you can't just lay the bead. So yeah, you're looking at probably a couple hundred tacks. It takes a long time, but it's worth it in the end, so you don't warp your metal. And like this stuff, you're not obviously as, you don't need to be as worried about warping because it's not like it's a side panel on the car. It's just the firewall. And this is pretty thick metal, and so still be careful, but I think this is probably a good place to learn. So now we just go through through with the, I'm probably gonna start with a flap disc and see if we can just keep working on it like that. But remember, just like with the welder, you don't want to heat it up so much that it warps. So this is also a slow process that you just work your way around, and soon it'll get down to where, as long as you've done it right, you will just shave it down to smooth metal and it'll look like it was factory. All right, got everything ground back down to somewhat smooth metal. One thing that you need to pay attention to when you are grinding things down is that you don't start taking out too much material. This is a perfect example of, here you'd think you'd want to keep grinding because you haven't ground that bead down completely, but you need to look at the whole picture and look at the metal around it as well. So I know that this corner here is higher than it is here. So if I was to just keep grinding until this bead is completely gone, then you'd start wearing this outer edge real thin, and then it's either gonna go through eventually, and it's gonna become weak and potentially crack. So you gotta make sure to look at everything and not just focus on getting rid of that bead. Like here, there's a little bit there left, and one thing that you can do is get some type of straight edge that you can hold against it and be like, okay, so I'm high here and here, so I am not going to be able to get rid of that completely. And there you'll just have to use body filler. Also, you want to use as little amount as possible, but you also don't want to go crazy trying to get rid of these. Here, this is a high spot, and so of course, if I try and continue to get that, I know I'm flush there across. It's just there's a low spot in there, and so I'm not going to be able to get rid of that fully. So I'll just use body filler for that. And then after you have ground through, you need to make sure and look through everywhere and look for pinholes. Like here, I know there's one right there and potentially one right there. So I'm going to just re-tack those real quick and then I can ground them down again. But yeah, you want to make sure that you get rid of all potential moisture places, because that will just lead to rust. And I think I just have those two, so I'll probably do that real fast and then we can move on to the next thing. All right, next item of business is we have the high hump transmission tunnel. Got this one off of the kegs, and this is so that I can fit my TR6060 transmission in here. As you can see, I've already traced around where it's gonna sit. So I think the easiest thing will probably just cut along this groove, which it's honestly probably why it's there. This one I think I'm gonna use the plasma cutter for because it's a lot less noisy and I want to see how it does. So probably set that all up and cut her out. Sorry for kind of bounce around on video quality. My GoPro died, so I'm now using my phone, but man, that plasma cutter made that super quick and easy. Now I just need to smooth out the edges, and then this goes just like that. And then we gotta figure out how to make her fit good. This is just something that is an example of working on older vehicles. As you can see on this side, it is raised, I don't know, like a quarter of an inch. See that it sits pretty much flush And that just goes to show that when they put this piece together and tack welded it, it wasn't lined up good. And that's just something you're gonna run in with vehicles from older vehicles, just because a quarter inch is kind of close enough for them. So we'll have to figure out how to make that sit flush, but we won't have to be worrying about that for a while, so that's all right. I just wanted to get that cut out so when it gets to the point to where I have the engine and transmission on the frame, I can set the cab on and it won't be in the way anymore, and I can notch out where the transmission or the shifter needs to be and things like that. So I'm not going to be bolting that on yet. I'll be doing that later. Well, we got the part of the outside rocker out. I ended up just cutting it and then cutting along this edge. Make sure that if you do this, make sure to come out far enough from this edge here that you are not going to cut in, kind of like how I did here, into the inside panel if it's good. If you know you're going to replace it, then who cares? For me, I know at this point that I'm going to replacing, just because we have, oh, where's my finger? Right there, rust holes there, and then on the inside as well. So I'm actually not even going to worry about pulling this off more, because we are most likely going to be cutting along here anyways. So yeah, I'm not even going to worry about that. I'll probably take this off just because there are it's a little more complicated up here, I think, than back here. For this, I just drilled out those spot welds, and then yeah, I did the cutting. So I'll probably have to do that here as well, just because I want to make sure I don't mess up that, and I don't know how that all goes together, but we'll figure it out. But I think I'm going to end this one here, just because I kind of want to do the rocker panels in a separate video. So I at least wanted to get them, at least open up this one, kind of help me figure out the process and how much is going to go into it. And then I can create a game plan. I don't think I even have the inner rocker panel, so I'm going to have to order those. I have the outers, but I don't have the inners, I don't think, because I thought they might be good, but obviously they're not. So yeah, I'm going to end this one here. Research, buy parts, and then I can come at it hard and should be able to knock these out pretty quick. I think it's intimidating at first because you see kind of all the layers, but once you start peeling back the layers, you realize that, oh, if you just do it in a process, it's not going to be that bad. So, and that's why you just do things. Don't think about it, just do. You'll learn along the way.